Welcome to another improvised live. Okay, so it's I don't know what time it is, but I think it's around, yeah, it's 9:13 in the evening in Leeds, UK. So I went outside with my family in the morning. We went to another city, York, which was nice, and we just came back, but I'm exhausted. But at the same time, I have a few pieces to finish. So this is what I'm gonna try to do in this life. Yeah. As I mentioned, I'm a little bit tired, so I'm just going to put something on, like the last two lives, and go from there. So I have this large vase. So I have this slab to finish this and this vase, because I want to make the bottom or the footer like a collar, because I want to make these into three, like when I draw on it, I want to make three heads and have the footer look like a collar or something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna try not to make it look tacky with the collar, but I'll do my best. So I need to decide which ones I'm gonna work on first, because I'm working with clay and it gets dry very quickly. So I think I'll work on this first. I need to smooth it and have the footer, and then I'm probably gonna move to this one. This I only need to make sure that the hole is right and, you know, clean it up. This one I think is finished, so I'll just go put it in the finished section. This is a plant pot that I'm making for the house, for a prayer plant. The only thing I suspect that this clay is some kind of speckled clay, because I really do a really bad job with labeling the clay. So most of the clay is just anonymous 1, 2, 3. So I'll just be covering the ones that I'm not doing. That I'm not working on right now. So they stay moist until winter. Okay, cover this one. Sometimes I need to see everything first so I can figure out my time. So I'll just see where my energy takes me tonight, because I have a little bit of headache, but I think I will survive. Welcome to my studio. I'm still setting up my studio, and I've been taking footage so I can eventually make a video out of it. Because I think it's just easier to work, to like organize, but then work a little bit, because I think when I'm working, I can figure out where I want to put things, or how I need things to be in order to work, you know. So I've been doing that, and I think I changed the studio around at least 100 times. But I think over time, I think it's working for me. Like, I'm starting to not think of it as aesthetically, but just to think of it when I'm sitting at the table. What do I need on my left? What do I need on my right? So that's why I keep changing things. And I'm hoping to be done with my studio setup before I leave to Toronto, which is in 2 months, and finish all these pieces. So I'm gonna start with this one. This I'm gonna shape probably into another mask, like the mask that I just wrapped up. And I need the bag. So anyways, the plan is when I go to Toronto, before going to Toronto, I'll be done with the studio. And while I'm in Toronto, to edit the video for the studio. Because I feel like I figured out a few things, like how I can make it happen without spending like too much money. Second, it's a rental house, so I cannot do too much. And I've also been working on the backyard because it's summer now, so it's really nice outside. So I've been enjoying just working outside. I took a little bit of footage, but I honestly been enjoying it too much sometimes that I didn't take any footage. Because right now it's just easier for me to go live. So I think at some point when I check I'm still like getting the hang of the lives. Like if you notice the last 2 lives, the orientation was totally wrong. But I hope third time is the charm. And also until I get my live schedule together, if you would like to know when I go live, because sometimes I myself, I don't know, like most of the time I just spontaneously just decide to go live. So until I get my schedule together, maybe click on the bell thing, the bell notification to tell you that I'm going live if you'd like. I didn't cover this because I just kind of rolled it out and it's quite wet. And because I want it to be a footer for this, so I need it to be rigid enough that I need a different tool. So I'm basically just trimming this. And I want it to be like multi-purpose, you know, like you can put your brushes in it, your pencils, you know. If you're really interested in a weird cup maybe to drink something out of. But I think mostly just, you know, or a vase or something like that. That's why I think the footer is important, to make sure that depending on what's in it, it doesn't topple over. But my original plan was just a very simple design or whatever. But now I want it to be really functional too. Like not worry about what's going to be in it, especially that I really wanted to shift the form a little bit. I feel the trimming is so soothing, but also because it's hand built. Because it's hand built, it's not like on the wheel, like you just keep doing this, which what I've been doing. But I feel I just need to focus on one area and shave it enough. And if I tap it, if it's a dull sound like this, it means that it's thick enough to continue. Because I don't want to trim too much and then end up with a hole or something, which I did before. Okay, so I'm not gonna babble on, and also I just want to enjoy the trimming process because after a long day outside, like my eyes are literally red right now. So after a long day outside, I just feel like I want to enjoy this. So as usual, I'm just gonna do what I usually do when I'm by myself. Just put on a YouTube video and listen to it as background noise. Okay, so I'm listening to War of the Roses by History Infographics.
Ruled solely by divine right. If he was weak in the eyes of the people, he could be removed. The crown was no longer a certainty. It had become a contested prize. In 1399, Henry Bolingbroke, Duke of Lancaster, seized the English throne. This development signified not only a change of monarch, but also a challenge to the established system of succession. Henry deposed the legitimate king, Richard II, and took his place. This was the first time in English monarchical history that a king ascended not by divine right, but by direct political force. The accession of Henry IV triggered a long-term legitimacy crisis in English political culture. The throne was no longer seen as an inviolable birthright, but as a position that could be contested
I need
and
to be
claimed.
careful here, it's not
This
too
shift
thick.
would lay the groundwork for internal conflicts in the years to come. Shortly after coming to power, Henry's relationship with one of his main supporters, the Percy family, began to deteriorate. The Earl of Northumberland and his son Henry Hotspur Percy had initially supported Henry's claim to the throne. However, Hotspur did not receive the political and financial rewards he had expected. By 1403, the dispute escalated into open rebellion. At the Battle of Shrewsbury, Hotspur's rebel forces clashed with Henry IV's army. The battle ended in a royal victory, and Hotspur was killed in combat. While this brought short-term stability for Henry,
Sometimes I really like these metal ribs
Around the same time,
because they
another major
really
threat emerged
like
in the
shave
west.
off the
In
clay
1400, Owain Glyndwr,
as opposed
a
to
Welsh
the ones like
landowner
these,
and lawyer, declared
the rubbery
himself
ones that I
Prince
feel
of
like
Wales and launched an
it
armed
pushes the
movement for
clay, which is good in
independence.
certain
His calls gained
circumstances when
significant
it's
support
wetter
from
than
both the
this.
local aristocracy and the general population.
Shut 'em on this.
Several regions of
This
Wales
makes it
effectively
like,
broke away from English control,
yeah,
and by
without shaving
1404,
too much.
Glyndwr had secured an alliance with France, expanding the rebellion. Henry IV struggled to suppress the uprising. The English army was unable to operate effectively in Wales due to both difficult geography and strong local resistance. The revolt evolved into a prolonged internal security crisis that drained both the military and financial resources of the crown. In the following years, Henry IV's health deteriorated significantly. He suffered from skin conditions, seizures, and periods of unconsciousness, which frequently removed him from direct governance. As a result, his son, Prince Henry, began to take on more responsibility. This created a de facto dual leadership at court. Prince Henry became increasingly prominent in the public eye, especially for his role in managing domestic unrest. The king's illness led not only to physical weakness, but also to political isolation. He lost influence within the court, his support network weakened, and his ability to govern diminished. In 1413, Henry IV died. His son, now Henry V, emerged as a strong, energetic, and stabilizing figure in the eyes of the English public. The reign of Henry IV demonstrated that a throne taken by force could struggle to produce lasting stability. In 1413,
Sometimes I feel clay is really addictive.
Prince Henry ascended to the English throne.
Like I can play with this like for 3 days. That's why I feel like
after years of uncertainty surrounding the legitimacy of the previous reign, Henry V was seen not only as a new monarch but also as a restorer of order. In contrast to his father's rule, marked by illness and rebellion, the young king entered power with broad support from both the church and the nobility. Upon his accession, Henry immediately took steps to restore internal order. He imposed harsh measures against the Lollard movement, reinforcing his alliance with the church and affirming his commitment to suppressing radical religious factions. This decisive stance established his image as a strong and authoritative ruler in the eyes of the population. However, Henry V's primary focus was foreign policy. Following the path of his grandfather, Edward III, he revived England's claim to the French throne. In Henry's view, the territorial losses and declining influence from earlier phases of the Hundred Years' War needed to be reversed. In 1415, he launched a military campaign in France. In October 1415, the Battle of Agincourt took place. The English army, though vastly outnumbered, won a significant victory against the French cavalry on muddy terrain. English longbowmen dealt a
Actually, this
serious
is
blow
what
to
I
the
like
traditional
about hand
feudal
building.
structure of the French army. The battle was
This is what I like about hand building, is that I feel like I'm really molding it exactly the way that I want, even though it takes much longer than hand throwing. But it just creates a piece that you cannot duplicate it so easily, you know. Especially if you think of ceramics as something that, I mean, if you don't break it. If you don't break it, it can stay forever, because ceramics is literally like what we find in, you know, tombs and things like that. Like most of our history, like we trace it by knowing ceramics or by understanding the story of the people, what did they use to drink of. Imagine if today, like, you can be buried with your favorite ceramics or your favorite mug. And then people, after like so many years, they can use our graves as like some kind of weird kind of art museum to see everybody's art collection. Sometimes, yeah, the nicest way is to just do it with my hands. This is rough here. Okay, I'm gonna put on War of the Roses again. I think I listened to 1000 documentaries about it, and I still don't really understand. Or just cannot remember, because sometimes when you realize what was the cause of the war, it's usually not a very good reason. So I don't remember. Like, I understand that the two fighting armies were had roses as symbols, so not like people throwing roses at each other. So okay, let's just listen.
considered a turning point not only in military terms, but also ideologically. It elevated Henry's personal image into a national symbol. Agincourt was not. As England stepped into the 14th century, a boy of only 14 took the throne, Edward III. The reign of this young king would not only reshape his kingdom, but change the fate of the continent. In 1327, following the deposition of his father Edward II, Edward III was proclaimed king while still a child. In the early years of his reign, power remained in the hands of his mother Isabella and her lover Roger Mortimer. But within just a few years, the young king proved his competence. In 1330, he had Mortimer arrested in a night raid and took control of power himself. Edward's reign was not merely the rule of a king, but the formation of a new era. To glorify his dynasty, he set his sights not only on England, but also on the throne of France. Through his mother's Capetian bloodline, he found a legal foundation to claim the crown of France. This claim launched the Hundred Years' War in 1337. England was no longer merely an island kingdom. It now stood at the center of the European balance of power. Edward sanctified his victory from the battlefield with the culture of chivalry. The Order of the Garter, founded in 1348, became not only a symbol of loyalty, but also of knightly spirit dedicated to the English crown. In many ways, it was the Arthurian legend made flesh. By including Parliament in governance, he maintained a balance in his relations with the nobility. As Weir emphasizes, Edward was not only a commanding king, but a consultative one. Parliament became a co-decision maker with the king in matters such as taxation and foreign policy. This marked a turning point in the constitutional development of England. Under Edward's rule, the monarchy began to function not merely as a royal institution, but as a socio-political network. The king expanded the foundation of public legitimacy by listening not only to lords, but also to merchants and town councils. In all these respects, the reign of Edward III was not merely a period of growth for England, it was a time when England became England. But the foundation of this
Okay,
grandeur
I'm not
rested
really
on
feeling
something
this
far more fragile,
War of the
the
Roses.
complexity of dynastic succession. And that complexity would give birth to civil war within a generation. In 1337, King Edward III
I usually watch true crime, but that might be a bit gruesome right now, so okay, let's go with pre-Islamic Arabia.
When we think of ancient Arabia, we often only recognize it as the birthplace of Islam, one of the world's major religions. However, it's not often acknowledged that ancient Arabia was home to thriving civilizations and powerful kingdoms. Its people built dams and canals to irrigate vast areas, were frequently mentioned by ancient writers, and their goods reached the farthest corners of the ancient world. Today, we're going to explore the history of the Arabian Peninsula during its pre-Islamic era. Arabia wasn't always the endless desert we imagine today. Between the 10th and 6th millennia BC, it was a lush land. Where sand dunes now dominate, there were once numerous freshwater lakes. The Rub al-Khali and Nafud Desert, now among the most inhospitable places on Earth, are once areas with large lakes fed by seasonal rains and a network of rivers. Vast stretches were covered with savannas full of gazelles, antelopes, saigas, and aurochs. These favorable conditions allowed for widespread human settlement. Across the Arabian Peninsula, many communities of hunter-gatherers and herders thrived, leaving behind distinctive stone tools, settlements, and remarkable examples of rock art. The scenes depict hunting and pastoral life, showing people with livestock and wild animals. These communities were small and mobile, moving with the seasons to take advantage of the rich resources in the grassy plains. They probably spoke Proto-Semitic languages, though we don't know exactly who they were. Around the start of the 5th millennium BC, the climate in Arabia began to change. Monsoons, which had been a reliable source of rain, weakened and shifted southward due to gradual changes in Earth's axial tilt. Lakes dried up, grassy landscapes shrank, and plants adapted to dry conditions took over.
Let's start with the
Eventually, the area
footer.
started turning into a desert. These climate changes had a big impact on people's lives and became harder to live in. Some people left Arabia, moving to Mesopotamia and Levant. Those who stayed gathered in places where water was still available, in the mountains, along the coast, and in oases fed by underground water. Between these settled islands, herders moved around, adapting to the growing desert and finding ways to graze their
Looking
livestock
for a knife.
despite the constant lack of water and vegetation. In the 3rd millennium BC, despite tough climate conditions, the first real urban centers appeared in Arabia. These centers popped up in the eastern part of the peninsula and in Oman, strategically located at the crossroads of trade routes linking the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. The Anar culture flourished in what is now the United Arab Emirates and Oman around 2700 BC. Cities with impressive stone architecture sprang up on the island of Anar in Hili and Tel Abrak. The tombs at Bat, Al-Qutum, and Al-An show advanced engineering skills and a sophisticated social structure capable of organizing large-scale construction projects. Local communities actively mined copper deposits and engaged in lively trade with Mesopotamia, where this region was known as the Land of Magan. Later in 2200 BC, the Dilmun civilization emerged in Bahrain and the nearby eastern coast of Arabia. It quickly became a major trading hub of the ancient world, acting as a crucial link between Mesopotamia, the Arabian Gulf, and the Indus Valley civilization. The main urban center at Kut al-Bahrain featured temples, residential areas, and strong fortifications. The Dilmunites seem to have had connections with the Akkadians, as shown by their kings' names, which clearly have East Semitic roots, and their use of Akkadian cuneiform as their writing system. This made them the first literate people in Arabia. However, most of their records are about administrative and economic matters. Dilmun's strategic location made it a key hub in maritime trade between the Indus Valley civilization, Arabia, and
The
Mesopotamia.
reason why I'm
This is
taking
evident from the
some
widespread
time with
use
this,
of Indus Valley measuring weights in Dilmun and the discovery of Dilmun seals in both the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia. Dilmun was a fully developed urban civilization with advanced crafts, long-distance trade, monumental architecture, and centralized governance. The Sumerians described Dilmun as an earthly paradise where the ravens not yet
the reason I'm
closed,
taking time
the
with this
partridge
because the
had not
footer
yet
needs to
cackled,
be cut
the lion did not
straight.
kill, and the wolf did not carry
Otherwise,
the lambs. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Dilmun is mentioned as a land where a plant grows whose fruits grant immortality. However, this plant was actually oysters, and the fruits were pearls. The Sumerians believed that eating crushed pearls in food granted immortality. In another Sumerian myth, after the Great Flood, the gods took Utnapishtim, the Sumerian version of Noah, to Dilmun, where they granted him eternal life. Some scholars think that Dilmun and its depiction in Sumerian Akkadian mythology served as an early model for the idea of paradise in biblical tradition. During the Bronze Age,
so to
the interior
attach it to
and
the
western
bottom.
parts of Arabia developed in different ways. The
This is not a
central and northern
tutorial,
areas of
but
the
it's
peninsula, along with much of the Hejaz
since we're
region
here.
near the Red Sea, were mostly dominated by a pastoral nomadic lifestyle. Settled communities were mostly small
So we basically need
settlements.
to.
Places like Tamar and Dumat al-Jandal in the north were inhabited as early as the 2nd millennium BC.
I totally forgot
The
what is the
most
ceramics
cities
name for
were
this.
rather settlements clustered around oases. These locations were important
But what I'm
sites for
basically
trade
doing,
routes and also served as
because
agricultural centers,
we are hand building, so we're basically adding
significant
more
urban
pieces
development in
to
these areas
what
only
we're doing.
began in the 1st millennium.
So when you're hand building, like you're adding pieces to make your building your form, and to result with at the end of the day with a vase or whatever. And you need to make the clay understand that it's no longer gonna be separate pieces. They need to get to know each other. So in the points where those pieces come together, like I'm gonna put the footer at the bottom, we need to scratch it like this because the atoms or the little particles that is making the clay, they are going in different directions. So we need to neutralize this area. And also at the same time, we're roughening the two surfaces so they glue together better. And this is actually one of the most important parts of hand building, because usually if things break, they break at these points. So that's why we need to make sure. As I said, most of my clay is anonymous, but I think this is multi-purpose clay, the same kind of clay. So when the clay is watered down, it's called slip, but it just acts like glue. Like you basically use clay itself to glue themselves, clay themselves to glue themselves, yes. Okay, water helps. Usually in hand building, unlike throwing you need a lot of water. Actually, no, like you see people use a lot of water, but it's still better not to use a lot of water. But compared to hand building, it uses a lot of water. In hand building, you try not to use a lot of water because the water makes the structure of the clay weak. But you just need a little bit of moisture. And then what happens is, let's now attach it. So the way we attach it, I feel like this all of a sudden turned into a tutorial, even though I said this is not a tutorial. So I just put it where I want to put it. Let's see. No. I need to make it a little bit tapered because I really want it to be to make the shape stable. So it's just better to have it tapered like this. And I'm going to solve the height later. Okay, I think this works. It works like this. Alright. So now that I know I like this, I start pressing the clay. Because it's just not, you don't just put it on it. You just need to let them go, like get to know each other, hug each other, something like that, you know? Because I guess you cannot connect unless you physically touch, basically. And I do the same thing to the ends here. And if you try to even lift it, it doesn't lift. Like it's already a bit stuck with it. But you still need to apply just a little bit of pressure. To make them mesh together. It's kind of weird. When I started this, I felt like I have this headache that is turning or slowly turning into a migraine. And now when I started working, something about clay just makes me feel better. I still think I need some tea, so let's see what I'm gonna do about that. Okay. Yes, I think this is the stability that I need for this. So the thing is, when you put something on, just make sure you press it down enough. And generally speaking, in the shape that you want, the direction that you want. And it's gonna look a little bit rough and smooth, like try to make them truly bond together as much as you can. But you don't have to make it perfect because you're gonna let it sit for a while and spray it and cover it so they all have the same moisture, because now this is drier than this. So when you cover it, like you let them kind of hang out together, you know, and slowly bond. That's why when I'm hand building, I'm usually hand building several pieces, because by the time something is sitting, I'm working on the next one. And because of course this is not strong enough yet, so I'm just gonna save it, or I mean put it like this. So just spray it, cover it, and go to the next thing on the list. Okay. So next on the list is this vase. I need like smaller. Okay, I think I need to cut this a little bit. So basically stabilize my hand, and while I'm turning, first just a slide. I don't have to cut it all in one swipe. So this is higher, I'm gonna go lower. Okay, let's try again. Not the vision, but let's do it on stages. Doesn't have to be exactly horizontal, because this is not the rim yet. I'm gonna do a neck. Can you see this? Wait, I think this is better. Yeah, okay. And the thing about the rim, it becomes dry faster. So that's why it's just important to, because it's exposed as opposed to the other, you know, parts of the vase. So it's just good to keep it moist. All right. So what I'm doing next, because I'm attaching another part, I'm basically gonna do exactly what I did before. What was it called in ceramics? Score and something. Score and slip. So basically score and use slip. Yeah, so we're basically creating this rough glue thing. A little bit of water. And I'm going to build the neck in slabs. So a slab, then a slab, then a slab. Just trying to decide about the thickness of the slab. Usually I make it the thickness of something like this to make it flexible. But sometimes you can have fun shapes as well with something higher. Sometimes I feel like hand building in clay is just like Lego building, but for people who like to get their hands dirty. Also, you are making your Lego pieces yourself, which I think is more fun than just assembling something. Okay, so let's test this one out. Because like what you're doing in that, you're not mindlessly building. You're trying to make a shape that is in your mind. Maybe sometimes you're just going spontaneous, but most of the time, I would say, you have a vision for this, but you're flexible. Okay. So just cut the rest. Not bad if we have more. And we start on the neck. Probably as I'm doing this live, I will have to change the camera so I can capture this whole thing because it's getting taller. Same thing, score the thing. Actually, because the word that comes to mind when I'm scoring, it's not scoring because I'm from Sudan, and the women or the old women in Sudan, like back in the day especially, they have these shulukh, like we call them, which is like scars, like tribal scars, which other African people have it too. So I feel like I'm doing, like I'm أشلخ فيهم, like I'm putting some shulukh on the thing, on the clay. Alright, so I'm gonna have to do the same thing at the bottom. I like to see sometimes people on YouTube when they're being very neat, so they do it because they tell you to do it like 45 degrees, like this and this, but in reality it doesn't really matter, you know. You can just make a whole mess, and I feel like the messier the better, so as long as they're not in the same direction. And then just for extra security, let's add our glue, which is basically watered down clay, liquid clay, let's say. It's not always liquid, like you can see it's not exactly liquid. But if you would feel it in your fingers or in your hand, you do feel like it's like glue. So now I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna put this neck on and press down as I'm placing it. So they So now I'm just gonna cut the excess. Almost. This looks like already. Oh yeah. So this is not straight, so let me just cut it straight. Like see, even when I was trying to take this, it was already a bit stuck on it. Alright, so let's do the shuluch on this. Before I close it, I just want to make sure it's sitting right. And then we zip it up. Yeah, you can see that. But with my hands, probably you can't. But I'm basically pushing them together. Just try to keep it circular. Probably just trying to tell it like you are one, become one together. And just smooth them. Not perfectly right now because they still need to sit together. Technically, I can build on this too, but since I have other pieces that I'm working on, so I'm just going to let it sit until a little bit, until I work on the others. Okay, the inside is usually really sticky, so either a knife works, quick smoothen, but mostly I need a spoon. If you do ceramics, do you use something else? Because I just use a spoon because that would ended up making sense to me. But I'm wondering if other people use other things. Because I feel on YouTube, most people are hand throwers, not hand builders. Maybe I'm in the wrong side of the algorithm. Sometimes the struggle of my life is to get to the inside and smooth it well. That's why I'm also asking, like, is there a better way? Okay. I think this lady needs a break. If you're pressing something against the clay, especially while you're building it, just make sure you're supporting it on the other side, so it doesn't cave in. طيب. I'm gonna pronounce her finished for now. Like this or something else. All right. Next. This is a plant pot. The only problem is that I think this is another anonymous clay that looks exactly like the clay I've been working on, but I'm suspecting, because I see a lot of particles, so I'm suspecting it might be because when I moved here to the UK, I wanted to know what are the available clays that they have here. So I got a lot of samples, and I have a feeling this is the stone one. But the only problem is that I ran out of it. So, and I'm going to glaze, I might be glazing it, but I don't know yet. So I'm just going to continue with another clay and see how it turns out, because I don't see other alternatives at the moment. All right. So this is just a simple plant pot. And even though in my ceramic work, like where people like buy from me or whatever, I never use glaze, like the colored glaze. I always paint on the ceramics. But I actually feel with this project of doing the plant pots for our house, I'm excited to try glazes and also to see what kind of glaze that I like, because I do have a couple that I brought with me from Toronto, and I never really tried them on a piece. So I'm looking forward to like trying out different glazes and maybe even purchasing glazes from here, from the UK. Because at some point I need to learn how to make glazes, and also in general to learn about glazes, because I only use transparent glaze because I paint on the clay. So I just need to show what's underneath. But I feel the transparent glaze is the most finicky glaze to make chemically, especially recently, even before leaving Toronto. Toronto, like there's Tuckers and there is the PSH. And PSH glaze, I didn't like it. It's not great. So I've been using Tuckers, but then Tuckers changed their glaze. And honestly, because the transparency of the glaze is really important, because otherwise it becomes foggy. I have plenty of examples, but I don't know if I want to mess up. Okay, maybe another time. Okay, let's do this. Let's do several strips. What was I saying? Yes, so I need the glaze to be transparent, but I've been facing a lot of issues, especially here in the UK, because most people don't really paint on it. So they don't really need it to be transparent. Or even when there is decoration on it, is actually literally decoration, not a drawing. So they, generally speaking, people don't really care for the transparent glaze to be perfectly transparent. That's why I feel like I need to learn more about glaze to know how to fix the glazes or make my own glaze once I settle down a little bit more. But I'm actually really happy to be here, you know, to be doing something new in the UK, to live with my family, to finally have this garage studio. It's a big mess, but hopefully at some point I'm going to figure out how to work and not make the place look like there was some kind of explosion. And also, I'm not entirely done with setting up the studio. So because I'm trying to balance things out, like to be able to work, do this, work, get my other things done, and also organized and set up the studio without setting up the studio taking a long time. And to be honest, I'm really happy to be going live because, and I probably should have done it earlier, because the kind of video that I make, I feel like I get stuck with the editing for months. Like I've been editing this video for a very long time, to the point that I don't want to edit it anymore because the idea feels stale, or I moved on, or that was like 5, 7, 6 months ago. So I feel just like I like watching artists or creative people work, or not exactly creative people, just anyone who is passionate about something, like they like to do something and they feel this is what they are, or this is why they are here, and they just feel, I don't know, I just like watching people doing the things they like. So I feel like, okay, maybe other people would like to watch me make the things I make in the studio, I hope. Because I cannot do editing. Because to be honest, when I'm editing, the time that I spend editing is time taken away from my studio. And even though I used to work as a graphic designer for years, and editing videos was part of my work, so I can do it. But I think because it was my day job, that's why I don't feel like I want to do it. Also because I think what I really enjoy is to take footage and come up with ideas or whatever, but I really don't like editing. I think I would have liked it if it takes 5 minutes. But literally I realized to make like to edit 5 minutes, like the watch time is 5 minutes, it literally takes me 5 hours. And it's, I know that I'm a small YouTuber, so it takes time to build an audience and figure out YouTube and do all of that. But my main thing in life is my studio work, actually. YouTube was something on the side, and also I started doing it basically at the time of my transition to the UK while I was waiting for the visa. Like I just uploaded my sketchbooks for myself, basically, because I had to leave them behind. So I needed to have some visuals, or I just needed to have access to them without having them physically with me. So I ended up uploading it to my YouTube channel, and it went okay. I was flattered, honestly, because I was, well, obviously at some points there are some people who laugh at the thing that you do, especially like my style of sketching. So I did meet a few of those people, like even like one of them told me like, why do you put this in YouTube? It's really bad. And I was like, why not? So I do get these comments, but to be honest, I'm very surprised, pleasantly surprised that the majority of the people who watch me or follow me are people who actually, for some reasons, also like what I do or enjoy it. So I feel like I've been fortunate with this. And now I feel life works much better for me. Because for me, I feel I don't have to do anything other than what I already do. And also I feel like I have company. Even sometimes I glance at it and it's like zero people watching, but it's still nice sometimes to feel like, okay, I totally understand. But you still feel, even if there's no one watching, the fact that it's live makes you feel there are people, you know. So it just makes me feel like I have some studio mates. So thank you for the company. All you two people, thank you for being here. And to be honest, on YouTube, I don't think the more people is always the better, because the more people that are watching or whatever, you might just run into the people who just might not have the most positive energy, you know. So also the nice thing when there are very few people watching is that they see that there is only one other person watching, or no one is watching, and they still decide to watch, which I think is a bigger compliment than seeing 1,000 people watching. Because most people have what I think some people call it like the herd mentality, that if there are a lot of people on this, that means this is worth watching, and if there's no one on this one, that means this is boring. So it's actually flattering when people can see that no one else is watching, but we're like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I feel if I was making this planter completely for myself, I was just gonna make it look a little bit weird. But because my family, they're a bit classic, and I don't think they're gonna appreciate something that is not, at least looks like a perfect round shape. So I'm going to do my best with this one. Because I need some compliments, you know. Because sometimes, even if other people tell you that I like your work, whatever, you still need your family. to tell you that too. So like before, I'm pressing it down to make them mesh into each other. And because this is an easy shape, I don't need to let it sit for too long. So I'll just make another story for some slip. There's a bit of controversy if we really need slip, because a lot of the times when I don't have slip, I don't use it and it's fine. Depends on the clay. Like I cannot do that with porcelain. But if the clay, and most clays are not very finicky, I feel you can just wet it, and because you're scoring it, so the scoring already creates this slippy texture. So I don't feel like you always need it. But some ceramic people make it sound like it's a crime not to add slip. So let's just add it as a precaution. And also because if there is any way that I can prevent cracks or things going wrong, I'm going to do it. Okay. Forgot something crucial, which is where are we going with this? Because, okay. Is she gonna, let's open her up a little bit. Okay. I have an idea. I'm in dire need of tea because I'm having a headache, but I'm enjoying this, so I'm gonna continue. And also at the same time, I need the plant that I'm making this pot for. So I'm gonna bring her from upstairs and pour some tea and be right back. But unfortunately, because I don't have the live software that people use, I don't remember the name, StreamYard, so there's no graphics, you know. So I'll be right back. Probably fill this too. I would really appreciate it if you don't go away. I would love it. I'm just gonna be gone for like 10 minutes. So I'm gonna bring the plant to make sure that this is, because it's going to shrink like 20%, but I still need the reference because I'm feeling that this is a little bit too high. And also I think I might need to adjust the shape. So I'm just gonna be right back. 1 second. Thank you so much for still being here. This feels definitely like studio mates. All right. I cannot thank you enough for letting me get some tea because I feel my head is melting. All right. So this is the lady. So she needs, first of all, this is going to shrink a little bit, 20%. Second, she needs a bigger pot anyways. So if I continue this way, this will be exactly more or less the same pot. So what I'm going to do is like go with the rib around to make her a little bit wider and shape her in a way to make this wider and then build another, continue with this one. Feel fruits really help with headaches. طيب. So I'm gonna start with the first thing, which is, again, thank you so much for sticking around. The good thing about the clay that most of the time it listens to you. So now that I want her wider, all right, so let's take one step back. If I can find the knife. Forget the knife. I'm just gonna take this one off. And of course I found the knife after. That's fine. You're just slowly changing the shape. Or widening the shape, basically, in my character, I guess. Yeah, I feel like it's getting wider. Yeah, it's a bit wider now. I'll keep doing this for a while. The good thing about the rubber one, as opposed to the metal one in this case, is that the metal one actually cuts into the clay. This one just presses it. If you don't want to get too much clay off, but you need to make the clay work with you. And now it makes sense to use the other one because I want Hmm. Sometimes I just do this to make sure it's roundish. Hmm. طيب. I think I'm just looking for a simple tapered vase. I actually need to make plant pots for all our plants, but I'm starting with this one and another large one that I didn't start on yet. And I'm planning to fire in a little bit over a week. So, and this is still wet clay, so let's see what we can do about our firing schedule. Okay. Excuse me, miss. Okay. I think we're okay. So now we continue with the original plan, which is build another layer. It's always better to like shape as you go and double check. I think I'm enjoying this because this is a little bit different than my other ceramic work. Like this is something that I'm just gonna use in our house. And especially when you have a ceramicist in the house and you don't really have plant pots or special mugs or anything, it's a little bit embarrassing. So I'm hoping over time to have like kitchenware and things for my family, even though these are not the kind of stuff that I usually make with clay. Especially now I'm making more sculptures. I mostly make vases and paint on them. But I'm enjoying this because there's no real pressure, and also because I get to try something new, which is different color glazing. And to also see what is it that I like when it comes to colors and glazing and texture and things like that. And it's kind of nice because I feel like when you have plants and over time you have a connection with them because you're watering them and seeing them grow and things like that. So it's kind of nice to like be making them plant pots. I'm widening it a little bit to make sure it's big enough for the new and improved misses over here. Okay. Ideally, I would have one long enough to finish this. Which I can do. Ta-da! You know, it's like the cooking shows on TV, like back in the day when they tell you, okay, I'm gonna put the pie in the oven, and then they just open the oven and get out a pie that is ready. The thing that I like about clay or hand building is that it doesn't matter how tired I am. Literally, there were times that I was really sick or just not feeling good or whatever. But if you put me on the chair, I'll be fine. You can have very low energy and still work and be merry. Alright, let me see if there are some comments or questions. Honestly, I'm not sure how to access the comments. 1 And I don't know. Anyways, let's go back to this. All right, put our clay glue. Now almost. Okay, before I close it, let's make sure it's going outward the way that I want. Taking my time with this phase because this pressing down is really important in making the clay understanding that they're one piece, not a bunch of strips. Let me close it with this. It looks like a Frankenstein thing, but over time it's gonna work. Because we're gonna smooth it out and you're not gonna see most of this. Not today, but eventually. Okay, I think with this one, because I already added this and this, so I think this is enough for her. Let her just figure things out. Adapt to the change. One last modeling. Okay, I think this lady is big enough because we need more space at the bottom for the roots. And I mean big enough, like wide enough, but I still need another layer because this is gonna shrink 20%. So yeah. Oh, have all the soil. What not to do. It's not gonna damage it because everything kind of burns off in the kiln, but I just don't need this on my clay. But it'll be fine because we're still gonna trim it. We're still building it, so things will change over time. All right, this lady is ready. Okay, I need a bag. It's big enough. Not big enough. Okay, I've been working on masks. I can find them. I always feel there's a surprise waiting for me. I never remember what's inside. Oh, here we go. Okay, good news that these are almost done, I think. This one, I'm just gonna smooth it. Because the thing is, when you're shaping, there's the other part is the painting. So I already have an idea for how I want this. It's gonna be more of a rough painting. But let's see. Okay, this lady over here, she's just gonna be a figurine. I just want to make sure she's making sense, you know. The boobies, I like to make the boobs until the knees. But the only thing I feel like she needs a bit more meat here. And I have a similar problem, is that I think I ran out of this clay. Oh no, I saved a little bit. The only thing, these are different types of clay, so technically I shouldn't touch this so it doesn't contaminate. But this clay itself, it's a mixture of a couple of clays. But because it looks brown enough, I think it's gonna work for my characters. Okay. Okay, let me add some meat to her thigh. Alright, so because this clay is very moist, so I don't need to adjust too much, but let's do a very small wedging situation here. Yes, this is one of the situations that I don't have slip of this kind of clay, because the slip needs to be from the same kind of clay, otherwise you're gonna see it. So I'm just gonna add to her thigh over here in a messy way, because I need it to firm up a little bit before I can trim her thigh. But I think other than this area, her curves are more or less balanced, and she needs to sit like this. Okay, this lady is fine. Okay, this one is getting dry, so let's So her face will be blank and I'm gonna draw it later. So she has like puffs, which, or you know, like when your hair is in, or this is how I draw like my hair. I put it in little stuff like this. And I wanted, so the plan for this was a candle holder, which is, where is my sketchbook? Which I think I drew. Oh yes. Which, let's see. Which is these ladies here. So this is the vision, is that, well, they're not twins, but, you know, cousins. So the idea is to have a basket on her head, and she can be a candle holder. The only problem is that unlike most of the things I do, this requires some measurements. Like I need to measure the candle holder, and also I want it to fit, I don't know what they call it, the tea candle holder. So I need it to fit like different types of candles. And this requires calculation, and I don't have the brains right now. So this will be sprayed and covered. And covered. A bag. Sometimes I feel like I need to call the thing for it to appear. There, so this one is gonna sit until I'm in calculation, mathematic mood. And that's it. I'm between talking to you on camera. Oh, that's not the ending I wanted for this, but thank you for being here with me. I am going to catch on some much needed sleep. If you can see, like, my eyes, they're really red. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will try to film whenever I'm sketching or like working on the studio or all of that. So thank you for being here, and talk to you another time. And I